Have you ever felt like something invisible is holding you back? Like an unseen force keeps you small, afraid, disconnected from the life you were meant to live? You're not imagining it. Fear is a silent architect, shaping your choices, your dreams, your very sense of self, without you even realizing it. But what if I told you that this fear isn't natural, that it was planted within you like a seed to keep you from awakening to your true power? Today, you're about to uncover a truth that the modern world has tried desperately to bury, a truth that great minds like Spinoza risked everything to reveal. Freedom isn't about escaping pain. It's about breaking through the illusions that keep your soul asleep. You were born to move with the mystical rhythms of the universe, to live from a place of clarity, courage, and sacred belonging. But first, you must see the invisible chains for what they are, and dare to break them. Most people will spend their entire lives running from this realization. But if you're here, something deeper inside you already knows. It's time to wake up. In this journey, we'll explore how fear controls you without your consent, and more importantly, how you can transcend it, reconnect with your spirituality, and finally live as the luminous being the universe intended you to be. Many souls watch our videos, but forget to subscribe. Don't miss the signs your higher self is placing right in front of you. Subscribe now to Celestial Truths, and stay with me until the end, because what you'll discover today has the power to change the way you see yourself, your life, and your place in the mystical dance of existence. Are you ready to step beyond the fear that has ruled you for too long? Let's begin. There comes a moment, subtle yet overwhelming, when a person feels strangely adrift, as if the strings that once tied them to the world have quietly loosened. This sensation of disconnection isn't a mistake. It is the whisper of the soul, an invisible call from the deepest corners of the universe. In these moments, when nothing quite fits and the noise of the outer world grows unbearable, the mystical path begins to unfurl before one's feet. It's not uncommon for the seeker to resist at first, attempting to cling to routines, identities, and empty certainties. But in truth, the spiritual awakening has already begun, a sacred unraveling that demands attention, tenderness, and immense courage. Spinoza, too, once stood on this precipice. Surrounded by rigid dogmas and suffocating expectations, he felt the heavy chains of a reality that no longer resonated with his spirit. It would have been easier to comply, to accept a life of hollow security. Yet something within him, that ancient, mystical voice, stirred restlessly, urging him to look beyond appearances. The universe speaks not through grand declarations, but through the quiet shifting of our innermost landscapes. It is in the subtle discontent, in the silent dreams, in the unexplainable longing that true spirituality begins to blossom. The soul rebels against anything less than truth, even when the price is high. Imagine for a moment a river that, after centuries flowing through the same course, suddenly feels the pull of a new current. The banks that once offered shelter now feel like barriers. The water trembles with the knowledge that change is inevitable. This is the mystical journey of every awakening soul, a surrender to the great, mysterious flow of the universe, even when the destination remains unseen. Carl Jung would call it the confrontation with the self, that first encounter with the vast, often unsettling mystery of one's true nature. Dreams become more vivid, synchronicities multiply. Symbols appear in daily life, nudging the seeker to pay attention. For those who dare to listen, practices like reflective writing, dream journaling, or sitting quietly in symbolic meditation become vital tools. They allow the veiled messages of the soul to rise into consciousness, like forgotten languages finally remembered. Each time you capture a dream fragment, each time you notice a meaningful coincidence, you are building a bridge between the conscious mind and the timeless dimensions of spirituality. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the fog of disconnection begins to lift, revealing the intricate mystical tapestry of existence. The universe is not silent. It speaks incessantly through symbols, through patterns, through the intuitive stirrings within you. Yet it's essential to understand that awakening is not a singular event, but a gradual, spiraling journey inward. One day you might feel immense clarity, touched by the divine hum of the universe. The next you might sink into doubt, fear, or despair. These cycles are not failures. They are sacred rhythms, mirroring the ebb and flow of cosmic tides. Spinoza faced exile, rejection, and solitude, not as punishments, but as rites of passage. Each trial carved space within him for greater truth to dwell. Likewise, every seeker must walk through valleys of uncertainty before reaching the highlands of spiritual insight. When you feel disconnected, lost, or alienated, don't rush to fix it. Instead, ask, what is the universe trying to reveal to me? What part of my soul is asking to be heard? Often, the discomfort is not a curse, but an invitation, an open doorway to a life more aligned with your mystical essence. Fear, after all, thrives where understanding is absent. The more you turn inward with gentle curiosity, the more you'll realize that the disconnection was never about losing yourself, but about peeling away the illusions that had imprisoned your spirit. In truth, the soul's yearning for authenticity is unstoppable. No matter how long you wander through the deserts of distraction, the pulse of your inner truth remains steady, patient, eternal. Like the stars cloaked by the veil of daylight, your spirituality never disappears. It simply waits for you to look deeper, beyond the visible. And when you finally surrender to the call, you'll find that you were never truly alone. The universe had been guiding you all along, shaping you silently through every joy, every sorrow, every unanswered question. You were being prepared for the great remembering. And so, as the first veil lifts, a new horizon appears, the courage to break through the illusions that once held you captive. It is here that the journey deepens, from the initial awakening to the conscious choice of living a life rooted in freedom, authenticity, and sacred belonging. The mystical current pulls stronger now, and the seeker stands at the threshold of transformation, heart trembling, eyes wide open. After the first tremors of awakening, a deeper challenge arises, one that demands not just awareness, but radical bravery. To question the rules you've been taught, to doubt the invisible structures that shape your very perception, feels like standing at the edge of an abyss. Yet this is precisely where true spirituality begins to ignite. The universe does not reward blind obedience. It calls forth those willing to pierce through the layers of illusion with the sword of conscious inquiry. It is a mystical rebellion, not born from anger, but from an insatiable yearning for authenticity. Spinoza knew this intimately. In an era when dissent could cost a man his place in society, even his life, he chose the thorny path of truth over the velvet cage of acceptance. His courage wasn't reckless, it was luminous, stemming from a profound understanding that the universe itself is alive with freedom. He realized that to live bound by falsehoods was a betrayal not only of his mind, but of his very soul. And so he walked away from the comforts of conformity, embracing the sacred solitude that all true seekers eventually must face. This confrontation with the collective illusions is no small feat. It requires standing, naked before yourself and the world, stripping away identities built to please, to belong, to survive. It is the archetypal hero's journey described by Jung, a departure from the familiar village into the dark, unknown forest. Each belief questioned, each rule dismantled, is like stepping deeper into the wilderness of the soul. And there, among the shadows, one discovers that spirituality was never about being accepted. It was about remembering your inherent belonging to the mystical flow of the universe. There's a wildness, a primal purity that awakens when you begin to see through the masks. You realize that many of the truths handed down through generations were never your own. They were survival mechanisms, chains disguised as virtues. Through practices like observing your emotional reactions, questioning habitual thoughts, and listening deeply to your inner dialogues, you start to unearth the ancestral illusions woven into your psyche. This is deep, alchemical work. The slow but sure transformation of leaden conformity into the gold of conscious freedom. And yes, there will be fear. Fear of losing relationships, fear of judgment, fear of standing alone in a world that prizes fitting in over waking up. But know this, every act of courage you take resonates through the universe like a bell ringing across timeless valleys. Spirituality is not sterile, it is wild, unpredictable, and fiercely alive. The mystical currents favor those who dare to follow the call of their own soul, even when it means walking away from everything familiar. In everyday life, this breaking of illusions may look like choosing honesty over politeness, authenticity over approval, silence over empty noise. It may look like saying no when you've been taught to always say yes, or like walking away from a life that no longer nourishes your essence. These choices, small and seismic, recalibrate your entire existence to the deeper harmonics of the universe. You are no longer a puppet of expectations. You are becoming a conscious participant in the sacred unfolding of reality. Each illusion broken is like clearing dust from a mirror. Slowly, you begin to see not only yourself, but the mystical architecture of existence itself. You perceive the interconnectedness of all things, the shimmering patterns hidden beneath the chaos. You realize that life isn't a maze of dead ends, but a living mandala, inviting you to dance within its spirals. As Spinoza taught, true freedom is not doing whatever you want. It is understanding why you want it in the first place and choosing from a place of clarity rather than compulsion. And so, armed with courage and illuminated by glimpses of deeper truth, the seeker moves forward. The old illusions crumble behind them, and the path ahead, though still cloaked in mystery, vibrates with the sacred pulse of liberation. It is here, in this courageous space, that a new revelation begins to stir. The divine is not above us, separate and aloof. It is woven into the very fabric of the universe, waiting to be recognized. Once the illusions fall away, a more profound vision begins to dawn, a revelation that shakes the very foundation of all prior beliefs. The seeker begins to perceive that the sacred is not a distant entity, seated high above the stars, detached from mortal existence. Instead, divinity pulses through the veins of the universe itself, every leaf trembling in the breeze, every river carving its path through stone, every heartbeat echoing in the silence. All of it is an expression of the divine mystery. This mystical recognition dissolves the old divide between spirit and matter, between heaven and earth. Spirituality, in its purest essence, is the awe-filled realization that to exist is to be cradled within the body of the sacred. Spinoza, with a courage rare for his time, dared to proclaim what few had the heart to even imagine. God is not a ruler presiding over the universe. God is the universe. Every atom, every thought, every star collapsing into supernova, all are currents of a single infinite ocean of being. To experience this truth is not merely an intellectual exercise, it is a seismic shift in the soul's perception. One no longer looks upward for signs of grace. Instead, one gazes into the eyes of the world itself and finds there the fingerprints of the divine. In this light, so-called miracles lose their strangeness. They are not interruptions of the natural order, but deeper, unveilings of it. The mere fact that consciousness exists, that a spark of awareness can arise within matter, is the greatest miracle of all. Spirituality, then, is not about waiting for thunderous signs. It is about cultivating the eyes to see the miraculous embedded in the everyday. A flower blooming, a child laughing, a stranger's unexpected kindness. These are the mystical signatures of a universe alive with sacredness. The practice of sacred observation becomes a gateway to this understanding. Set aside moments to truly see, not just with your physical eyes, but with the inner eye of the soul. Watch the patterns in the clouds, the flight of a bird, the way a shadow dances across a wall. In these simple acts, the universe speaks volumes. Meditation upon nature, dream journeys into symbolic landscapes, or even silent walks beneath the open sky can attune the heart to this mystical communion. The seeker learns that spirituality is not found in distant places, but in the profound intimacy of the present moment. Imagine living each day as if the entire cosmos were conspiring to reveal its sacredness to you. Imagine tasting the divinity hidden in a cup of tea, hearing it in the hush between words, feeling it in the ache of longing and the sweetness of fulfillment. This is the mystical path Spinoza glimpsed, a spirituality rooted not in separation, but in union. It's the realization that nothing, absolutely nothing, is outside the dance of the divine. Of course, such a vision requires constant tending. The habits of fragmentation are strong. The modern mind is trained to divide, to compartmentalize, to alienate. But through daily practices of mindfulness, gratitude, and symbolic reflection, One can weave back together the sacred tapestry torn by forgetfulness. Carl Jung spoke often of the need to integrate, to heal the split between conscious and unconscious, self and other, spirit and flesh. In the same way, recognizing the divine within the universe is an act of mystical integration, a remembering of what was never truly lost. And as this new vision settles deeper into the bones, something extraordinary happens. The seeker no longer fears the world. No longer is nature a hostile, meaningless mechanism. It is a living, breathing manifestation of the sacred. Suffering, beauty, life, and death, all are threads in the same luminous weave. Spirituality ceases to be an escape and becomes a profound engagement with reality itself. The mystical path is not elsewhere. It is here now in the simple, breathtaking miracle of being alive. With this sacred awareness blossoming, the seeker steps into a new way of being, one where every breath, every glance, every touch is a prayer. And it is in this quiet revolution of perception that true peace begins to grow. From this point forward, the journey turns inward once more, toward the acceptance of reality as it is, and the end of needless suffering. As the seeker delves deeper into the mystical journey, a humbling truth reveals itself. Suffering is not born from life's events, but from our resistance to them. Like a river fighting against its own current, we exhaust ourselves trying to reshape reality according to the fragile molds of our expectations. Yet the universe, in its infinite wisdom, flows according to patterns far beyond our limited understanding. True spirituality is not about bending existence to our will, but about learning to trust the sacred flow and surrender into its greater design. Spinoza grasped this with profound clarity. He saw that peace arises not from the fantasy of controlling fate, but from aligning oneself harmoniously with the necessary order of the universe. Reality, in all its chaotic beauty, is an expression of divine intelligence. To resist it is to deny the mystical currents that pulse through all creation. Acceptance, then, is not passive submission. It is an active embrace of the sacred dance of existence, a willingness to meet life as it is, without the distorting lens of fear, judgment, or desire. Imagine trying to hold on to a handful of water. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it slips away. In the same way, clinging to how we think life should be only intensifies our pain. Acceptance opens the hand, allowing the mystical river of life to flow freely through us. This doesn't mean abandoning dreams or resigning to injustice. It means seeing clearly, acting wisely, and responding from a place of inner alignment, rather than emotional turbulence. Spirituality teaches that liberation begins the moment we stop demanding that the universe conform to our will. Practical rituals help cultivate this sacred acceptance. Daily reflection, sitting quietly at the end of the day and observing events without labeling them good or bad, nurtures a more expansive consciousness. Watching the mind's instinct to judge, to grasp, to resist, reveals how suffering germinates. Through symbolic meditation, one can visualize releasing attachments into the flowing river of the universe, allowing them to be carried away by the currents of a greater, mystical order. Over time, this practice transmutes inner resistance into trustful openness. The more one practices acceptance, the more one notices an inner spaciousness blooming. Emotions continue to arise, grief, joy, anger, but they are no longer battles to be won or lost. They are recognized as sacred movements within the vast orchestra of the soul. Spirituality does not promise a life free of pain. It promises a life free of unnecessary suffering. Like the seasons, experiences come and go. Nothing is permanent, and in this impermanence lies the deep, aching beauty of existence. The universe, after all, is a living, breathing mystery, not a mechanical problem to be solved. Carl Jung often spoke of integrating the shadow, recognizing the parts of ourselves we habitually reject. Acceptance extends inward as well, embracing our own fears, wounds, and contradictions. The mystical seeker learns that to heal the world outside, one must first cease waging war within. By welcoming all aspects of ourselves with compassion, we dissolve the rigid armor that isolates us from the universe's eternal embrace. This inner unity reflects outward, creating ripples of peace in our relationships, our communities, and the collective psyche. It is essential to remember, acceptance is not stagnation, It is the fertile soil from which inspired action naturally arises. When we stop fighting reality, we can listen more deeply to the subtle guidance of the universe. Synchronicities become clearer. Intuition sharpens. Decisions no longer stem from panic or pride, but flow from a grounded center of spiritual clarity. Life becomes less about struggling against invisible currents and more about sailing skillfully with them, guided by the mystical stars hidden within the heart. And so, with acceptance as their compass, the seeker prepares to journey even further. No longer shackled by the futile resistance to what is, they are ready to discover the deeper wellspring of joy, not in conquering life, but in comprehending it. From this still, luminous center, a new understanding arises. Happiness is not something to be hunted or seized. It is the natural radiance of a spirit in harmony with the universe itself. In the labyrinth of modern existence, so many souls wander in search of happiness, mistaking conquest for fulfillment. They chase titles, possessions, accolades, believing that someday, somewhere, an external victory will unlock the gates to eternal peace. But the mystical teachings of the universe whisper another truth, quieter yet infinitely more enduring. True happiness is not found in accumulation, but in clarity. Spirituality invites the seeker to turn inward, to see beyond the glittering illusions and recognize that the essence of joy is already embedded within their being. Spinoza, in his luminous wisdom, illuminated this path. He understood that external conditions, though ever-changing like the tides of the mystical sea, could never be the source of lasting contentment. Joy arises not from bending the universe to fit our desires, but from aligning our desires with the eternal patterns of the universe itself. When one sees clearly, sees the transient nature of all things, the interconnectedness of all life, a deep, unshakable serenity begins to take root. It is the serenity of one who has ceased striving against the sacred order and has chosen instead to dance within it. Picture a mirror clouded with dust. No matter how much one decorates the room, the reflection remains blurred. Cleaning the mirror, not adding more ornaments, reveals the true beauty that was always present. In the same way, the mystical path teaches that happiness is a byproduct of clarity. The more you wipe away the projections, the fears, the borrowed dreams, the more vividly the inner light of spirituality shines through. Happiness is not something we find. It is something that is unveiled when illusions fall away. Practical steps toward this clarity involve conscious self-inquiry, asking simple yet profound questions. Is this truly my desire, or something I was conditioned to seek? Does this ambition nourish my soul or merely my ego? Reflective journaling, dream analysis, and the mindful observation of everyday choices allow the seeker to discern the hidden forces shaping their actions. The mystical universe leaves breadcrumbs everywhere, in recurring symbols, in intuitive nudges, in unexpected encounters. Following these threads leads one closer to the heart of authentic living. In truth, the more one releases the desperate clutching for control, the more life reveals its innate generosity. The universe, alive and overflowing with mystical abundance, does not withhold happiness. It simply waits for the soul to become still enough to receive it. Like a pond only reflecting the stars when, undisturbed, the mind must quiet its incessant grasping to mirror the celestial truths above. Spirituality teaches that the deepest fulfillment comes not from achieving more, but from needing less. And in that simplicity, the infinite is revealed. Carl Jung spoke of individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are, rather than who the world demands you to be. Happiness in this light is not a trophy, but a state of alignment. It is the feeling of the soul breathing freely, no longer trapped under layers of societal expectation. It is recognizing yourself as a unique, irreplaceable expression of the universe's eternal dance, a dance that is mystical, profound, and utterly sacred. Imagine waking up one morning and realizing you need nothing to feel whole, not because you have renounced life, but because you have embraced it completely. You move through the day not as a hungry ghost seeking validation, but as a luminous being participating joyfully in the unfolding mystery. Every breath, every smile, every sorrow even, becomes a note in the grand symphony of existence. This is not mere contentment. It is sacred bliss, born of clear seeing and fearless being. With this clarity blossoming within, the seeker stands poised on the threshold of even deeper freedom, a freedom not defined by outward choices alone, but by the inner mastery of one's own mind and heart. As the illusions of conquest fall away, what remains is a profound stillness, a mystical opening through which the true essence of life pours forth, preparing the soul for the next revelation, that freedom is not impulse, but conscious choice born from deep understanding. In a world that glorifies immediacy, it's tempting to equate freedom with impulsivity, to believe that acting without pause is the pinnacle of personal power. But true spirituality whispers a more profound truth. Authentic freedom is not the absence of restraint. It is the mastery of choice through deep comprehension. The mystical path teaches that every action, every decision, sends ripples through the universe, echoing far beyond the visible. To act without understanding is not freedom. It is bondage to unconscious patterns woven long before we could name them. Spinoza saw clearly that human beings are often enslaved not by external forces, but by internal compulsions they neither recognize nor question. He taught that to be free is to act in accordance with one's true nature, illuminated by the clarity of reason and the deep waters of spirituality. Freedom, then, is not doing whatever one pleases in the moment. It is choosing consciously, in alignment with the eternal rhythms of the universe. It is a mystical responsibility, an invitation to become co-creators of reality rather than blind passengers. Imagine a garden overrun by wild, tangled vines. At first glance, the chaos might appear as freedom, everything growing wherever it wishes, but on closer examination, one sees that without conscious tending, the garden suffocates itself. The mystical seeker understands that the soul too requires mindful cultivation. Authentic freedom blooms only when we clear the overgrowth of unconscious impulses and nurture the sacred seeds of conscious intent. Practices like deep journaling, dream analysis, and meditative contemplation help reveal where choice ends and automatic reaction begins. Carl Jung spoke of the complexes, inner knots of emotion and memory that act independently of our will. How often have we thought we were choosing freely, only to realize later that fear, pride, or old wounds were pulling the strings? To walk the spiritual path is to develop the luminous skill of self-observation. When faced with a decision, the seeker pauses, not out of hesitation but out of reverence. They ask, what part of me is making this choice? Is it my highest self, aligned with the mystical patterns of the universe, or an echo of unresolved pain? Over time, this sacred pause becomes second nature. Choices are no longer rushed, no longer driven by the hunger for approval or the terror of rejection. Instead, they arise from a deep center of clarity, a wellspring connected to the very heart of the universe. Spirituality thus transforms freedom from a childish tantrum into an elegant dance, each step a deliberate, meaningful movement within the grand choreography of existence. Freedom, paradoxically, requires discipline, but not the cold, rigid discipline of external authority. It is the warm, self-chosen discipline of one who values their own soul enough to nurture it carefully. Through mystical practices such as symbolic meditation, observing synchronicities, and engaging in acts of conscious creation, the seeker strengthens their bond with the inner compass that guides them beyond fleeting impulses into true sovereignty. The universe, ever mystical and alive, responds in kind, unveiling pathways once invisible to the hurried eye. As clarity deepens, an extraordinary revelation emerges. True freedom is inseparable from love. When you choose consciously, you honor not only yourself, but the intricate sacred web of life to which you belong. Every choice becomes an offering to the universe, a prayer woven into the fabric of being. You are no longer isolated. You are a living participant in the mystical unfolding of reality. Spirituality reminds us that freedom and belonging are not opposites, but two facets of the same divine jewel. And so, the seeker, now attuned to the subtleties of authentic freedom, stands ready to approach the realm of relationships, not with the hunger of neediness, but with the fullness of a heart that knows its own worth, prepared to love not from emptiness, but from an overflow of connection with the universe itself. There is perhaps no greater confusion in the human heart than the misunderstanding of love. Conditioned by centuries of stories, songs, and silent teachings, many come to believe that love is about completion, that somewhere out there another soul holds the missing pieces of our broken selves. But true spirituality, echoing through the mystical whispers of the universe, offers a more luminous truth. Love is not the search for what we lack, but the overflowing of what we already are. Genuine love begins within, blossoming from the garden of a soul that has first learned to nourish itself. Spinoza, wise beyond his time, understood that dependence masquerading as love inevitably leads to suffering. When love is entangled with neediness, it becomes a chain rather than a wing. True freedom, the mystical kind, arises when two souls meet, not out of emptiness, but out of fullness, each a radiant star in the vast tapestry of the universe, shining independently yet dancing together in sacred harmony. To love without clinging is to honor the divine within yourself and within the other, recognizing that both are sacred reflections of the same cosmic truth. Imagine a river and a tree. Beside it, the river flows freely, offering its waters. The tree grows strong, rooted yet open to the nourishment. Neither demands the other to be different. Both exist in mutual generosity, not in desperate grasping. This is the nature of mystical love, a meeting of souls who have embraced their own depths first. Spirituality teaches that before you seek a beloved in the outer world, you must court the beloved within, the eternal self, ever present, ever whole, ever luminous. Practical paths toward this sacred love include deep self-reflection, tending to the wounds of abandonment and unworthiness that often disguise themselves as romantic longing. Through practices like dream journaling, symbolic meditation on the archetype of the lover, and observing the synchronicities that reveal patterns of attraction, the seeker begins to heal the splits within. Love then ceases to be a transaction and becomes a mystical communion, an offering, not a bargain, a celebration, not a compensation. Carl Jung emphasized the importance of recognizing the anima and animus, the inner feminine and masculine aspects within oneself. Many relationships falter because individuals unconsciously project their unlived parts onto others, expecting them to heal what only inner integration can resolve. True spirituality invites the seeker to reclaim these lost fragments, to become a living mandala of wholeness. Only then does love transform from a desperate hunger into a sacred invitation. Come not to fill my emptiness, but to dance with my fullness. In daily life, this liberated love reveals itself in small, profound ways. You listen without the need to fix. You give without the expectation of return. You witness the beloved's growth without fear of being left behind. Love becomes a spacious, mystical field where two souls can unfold into their highest potentials rather than contracting into fearful entanglements. The universe, ever generous, reflects this inner wholeness through encounters that resonate with deeper truth rather than old wounds. Of course, the journey is not without its shadows. Old fears will arise. Moments of longing and vulnerability will surface. But now, armed with spiritual clarity, the seeker recognizes these moments not as signs of failure, but as invitations to love themselves even more fiercely. Every longing is a pointer back home, back to the infinite well of love that resides within the self. A mystical reminder that no, true belonging can ever be lost because it was never outside to begin with. And so, with a heart now rooted in inner abundance, the seeker steps closer to the final, radiant gate, the ultimate liberation from fear itself. For it is fear, subtle, pervasive, that has always been the last veil obscuring the boundless beauty of the universe. And only by dissolving fear can one step fully into the luminous embrace of true spirituality. Fear is the oldest shadow that haunts the human soul. It creeps in quietly, disguising itself as caution, prudence, even wisdom. Yet hidden beneath its many masks, fear is the most insidious force of control. It binds the soul to illusions, keeps the heart shackled to safe but lifeless shores. True spirituality begins, and only truly begins, when the seeker turns to face fear, not as an enemy to be slain, but as a teacher revealing where freedom still waits to be claimed. In the mystical dance of the universe, fear is not a punishment, it is an invitation to awaken. Spinoza saw fear for what it truly is, a misunderstanding of reality, a failure to perceive the interconnected order of the universe. Fear thrives where clarity is absent. It festers in the blind spots of the mind, in the refusal to see life as it is. To dissolve fear is to return to the source of all being, to recognize that the universe, though vast and mysterious, is not against you, but within you. Spirituality teaches that liberation is not found by avoiding fear, but by walking straight through it, hand in hand with the sacred forces that move all things. Imagine standing at the mouth of a great cave, dark and trembling. Every instinct urges you to turn away. But beyond that darkness, hidden in the heart of the unknown, lies a treasure greater than anything the surface world could offer, your own wholeness. The mystical seeker learns to enter the cave willingly, knowing that the monsters lurking there are often only illusions of their own making. Through conscious engagement, through dream work, shadow journaling, and symbolic meditations on fear, the seeker disarms the false narratives that once held power over them. Carl Jung taught that what we do not face becomes our fate. Every fear we deny, repress, or avoid grows stronger in the unseen corridors of the psyche. Spirituality, therefore, calls for radical honesty. To name your fears aloud, to write them, to sit with them in silent meditation, is to strip them of their mystical glamour. What once seemed insurmountable shrinks under the steady light of awareness. The universe, in its mystical compassion, responds to this courage by unfolding new pathways, new possibilities beyond the old prison of fear. Fear often masquerades as necessity. I must stay in this job, this relationship, this pattern, or else. But when the seeker pauses and listens deeply, they find that the or else is made of mist and echoes, not of real threats. Spirituality teaches discernment, the ability to differentiate between true inner guidance and the voice of conditioned terror. Through practices like observing synchronicities, interpreting dreams, and tuning into the quiet wisdom of the body, the seeker learns to recognize when fear is speaking and when the universe itself is offering a genuine warning or opportunity. In daily life, facing fear might look like speaking a difficult truth, making an uncertain leap, or simply sitting still when every fiber screams to run. These small acts of mystical bravery weave new patterns into the fabric of the soul. Each time you confront fear, you affirm to the universe, I am willing to grow, I am willing to remember. And the universe, ever mystical and alive, rushes to meet that courage with unexpected blessings, unseen allies, and doors that only open to the brave. Over time, something extraordinary occurs. The seeker no longer fears fear itself. Fear becomes just another wave on the surface of consciousness, rising and falling without pulling the soul from its deep center. This is the birth of true freedom, a freedom not from challenges, but from the tyranny of the reactive mind. Spirituality does not eliminate all pain, but it grants the profound gift of perspective, of seeing every experience as a movement within the greater mystical dance of the universe. And so, with fear dissolved and the soul reclaimed, the seeker steps fully into their own luminous being, no longer captive to invisible chains, no longer shrinking from the unknown. They walk hand in hand with the mystical currents of existence. From here, the journey of spirituality does not end. It only deepens, spiraling into ever greater intimacy with the vast, loving mystery of the universe. Now tell me, what fear has been silently shaping your life, and are you ready to break free from it? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your journey might inspire someone else to awaken too. If this message resonated with your soul, don't forget to subscribe to Celestial Truths and turn on the notifications so you won't miss the next steps on this mystical journey of transformation. And make sure to watch the next video appearing on your screen. It will take you even deeper into the hidden forces that shape your reality. I'm grateful you were here. See you on the next journey. This is Celestial Truths.